Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our backyard. In today's video, I would like to take you through the plants and how well they're doing in what I call our center bed. This is a newly planted bed where about only 4 plants returned from last year. And so a lot of this is new for me this year. So my name is Crystal, and I garden in Zone 9B south of Houston, Texas, along the Texas Gulf Coast. And we're starting to get in the really hot parts. We're in the 90s, it's high humidity, and we plant in very heavy clay soil. So every part of the world has their challenges in gardens, and ours is heavy clay soil, high heat, and high humidity. In fact, the humidity today is high 80s, low 90s. And so mornings are always more humid, and then it does dissipate a little bit during the day, but we're very, very humid down here. So we're in a subtropical area, and lots of different plants are available for us to be able to plant. And I, in particular, am a pollinator gardener. So I specifically plant for butterflies, hummingbirds, native bees, and of course along the way come birds, which I invite into the yard to help with pest control. We've got lizards, lots of life in the yard. So I am going to actually start on this side of the garden bed. And I want to draw attention to, they're just starting to open up here, the beautiful, this is such a gorgeous flower. This is Stokes aster. This is a native wild flower to many parts of the United States. It's definitely native here in our area. And this has buds and blooms all over. I started with 2 plants, and I decided that was not enough. So I, this spring, bought 3 more plants, and I just love this drift of 5. And I am amazed it never bloomed like this. I did have blooms last year, but I never had blooms like this. This is such a gorgeous color flower, and it's perfect, absolutely perfect for butterflies because they have this wonderful little landing pad that they land on and then put their proboscis down into the flower, all of these different little petals, to get at the nectar. Yesterday I had pipevine swallowtails and eastern black swallowtails feeding on this Stokes aster. They just loved. This was one of their favorite flowers yesterday. Right behind it, I have a Hot Lips salvia, and Hot Lips has just been flowering prolifically for me this spring. As you know, I was a little bit disappointed in it last year, and it didn't perform very well. This year, this spring anyway, it's just been phenomenal. And this flower has a 2-tone. It has a red, typically a red and a white flower. Isn't that pretty? Lots of pollinators have been visiting Hot Lips this spring. And the whole bed, because the whole bed is here for pollinators. Okay, next to it I have some very, very cheery and really pretty gold and kind of a deep maroon magenta color. These are coneflowers or echinacea. This happens to be of the variety Cheyenne Spirit. And Cheyenne Spirit has a lot of different colors. The last 2 years I've bought Cheyenne Spirit, I have gotten creamy color, a real cream. And this is the first year that I've gotten a golden color. And the first year I have gotten this color. Last year I had more of a magenta. So I like the height of this coneflower, and so I'm just going to have to since I know I like this height, I'm going to have to look for other types of coneflower colors because I really like this in the garden. Pollinators do really appreciate coneflower, and then the birds will eat, especially the finches, love the seeds in the winter. Back behind here, probably planted this a little bit backwards. I should have had these salvia. This is Summer Jewel, a pink color, and I should have planted this in front of the echinacea or the coneflower. But I've got 3 plants, and it looks like apparently they are reseeding prolifically. This is a Salvia coccinea. It is a native, and it doesn't get much taller than you see back here. So this bed is in full sun, but I'm sure it gets quite a bit of shade by the plants around it. So what is around it is pink pentas. So this is from the butterfly series. They get about 2 feet tall. And then I have this gorgeous truffle of pink gomphrena. And I am loving this flower. It's like a little pom-pom rising up in the center of the garden bed. And the butterflies that really like that, I see a lot of hair streaks and really small butterflies landing on the gomphrena. Okay, so next I want to come down here, and I have a native skullcap. This has such delicate, beautiful little flowers. I really like this plant, especially for the edge of a garden bed. And behind it, I have Gora. And I am on the fence about this. I was just shocked to find so many. It was just filled with aphids, and so I looked, and it's not flowering, so the aphids have certainly gotten to this plant. The plant itself is healthy, but the aphids, I couldn't believe all the aphids, and so I did spray some off, but you can see them here all along in there. And I looked it up and did a little bit of research, and Gora in the Houston area is what's called a trap plant, or it can be a trap plant that attracts the aphids to your garden, and then it will keep them off the other plants. Well, I don't have an aphid problem. I sure hope I didn't introduce one by bringing in this Gora. And I'm really on the fence about it because I didn't buy it as a trap plant. I bought it as a plant for the flowers. Let me show you its tag. It is in full sun. It is well draining soil, and it has been performing very well. It's just recently received all of these little aphids. So, of course, ladybugs love aphids, but you can just see, look how many are on this plant. Ugh. So, like I said, I'm on the fence. So any of you that plant Gora in the Houston area, I'm really curious what your experience with it is, because I don't have aphids in my garden except for on milkweed. And these aphids are not the milkweed aphids. So I'm curious, for those of you that do plant in this hot and humid weather, what your experience with this Gora is. Okay, as I continue on, I've got lantana, which is a mounding lantana that's from the Bloomify series, which is a sterile lantana. I love this. This is called Rose. When it first starts to bloom, this is what the blooms look like. It's kind of a peachy golden color, and then transitions into that magenta rose, and it just flowers and flowers and flowers. I had giant swallowtails in the garden yesterday that were loving the lantana. And then as I continue on, I've got the David Verity Kufia. This garden bed is in full sun, and this Kufia is really starting to just grow beautifully. Pollinators are all over it. Hummingbirds in particular love it, but pollinators of all kinds. And I really, really have loved the David Verity Kufia, or cigar plant. This is considered one of the larger sizes, and so I like that on a back or an edge. Let me pan over. That Kufia is David Verity, and so you can see it is in a container, but you can see its relative height. It is big. I love it. Okay. And then next to it is Mystic Spires. Oh, Mystic Spires is such a tried and true salvia in a pollinator garden. I can't speak highly enough about Mystic Spires. It just performs so well in our area. And then behind it, or right next to it, is Salvia leucantha, and I still have some blooms on it. It will bloom in the spring, but its big flush of blooms is in the late summer to early fall. And in particular, the pipevine swallowtails really love that particular nectar plant. The butterflies do. And then new for me this year is I talked about how I really wanted both Mandevilla, and then I have Diplodenia. And what's the difference? Well, Diplodenia, and I wanted pink this year because I kind of was in a pink mood, more so than some years. And Diplodenia is just a little bush, if you will. It does not vine. Let me come over here, where Mandevilla needs to be staked or have some type of a trellis, and it just blooms beautifully. And I saw this plant at Costco. It was from Costa Farms, which is down in South Florida. Healthy, gorgeous, and I could not pass it up. And so I decided to go pink. And so I have a trio in my really nice heavy-duty ceramic containers. I have both a light pink, a brighter pink, and then just medium pink, the Diplodenia, and then the two Mandevillas. And I love this. And speaking of Costco, as I go right next to it, if you follow my channel, you know that I have been attracted to this delphinium. Oh, I love this delphinium that I saw at Costco. Pretty inexpensive, and I thought, for the pop of color for spring, delphinium are not native. They're just not. They don't appreciate our brutal hot and humid summers, but for the springtime it's done really well, and it's been over here, and I think it's just a nice compliment to the pink Mandevilla. I just love this bloom. Isn't that gorgeous? It's a purple and a blue color, with that white center. It's so pretty. And so I've appreciated this, and I really, really love this next to my Mandevilla. And look at my trellis. Oh, look at this. The growth on this cardinal climber is just fabulous for this early. Oh, I love it. This will become a total mat of green, but it is blooming this spring. And the hummingbirds that we've had have really enjoyed the cardinal climber. Cardinal climber is a hybrid vine that is an annual, and it's grown from seed. And this is so easy. It loves our weather. It is a subtropic plant. It's a cross between a red morning glory and a red cypress vine. And so bloom on it I've showed in the past, and I'm actually going to put a link to the videos I've done on cardinal climber. This is like a perfect flower for hummingbirds, and they do love it. Also, other pollinators, especially the larger butterflies, are on this too. And so I'm just loving how this is looking. Look at that. And then back here I do have, I've mentioned I do have my canna lilies. Did have one bloom. This bloom's a red. They're growing really pretty back here. They're loving their life. Okay, and as I look this way, I'm going to go over now to this other side to take a look. So right next to the Stokes aster, I have some white coneflower. These are powwow white. They're more of a dwarf size, and so again, not necessarily the best location wise, because both the Stokes aster and this pretty yarrow, isn't that glorious? And then it starts to fade as it gets more mature, and then it fades to a light orchid color. But this gets pretty tall, and so my coneflower down here is a little bit amongst the mountains. I'm really happy seeing how well the liatris is coming up. I planted those bulbs because I knew that I wanted a little bit of fill in through here. So as I walk around, this is going to be the star of the bed in another couple of months. This is a dwarf red porterweed, and it gets huge. The word dwarf has nothing to do with this plant because we have such a long growing season. It covered the Stokes aster here. It just took out this whole area, and it went all the way this way. So it does get very huge by fall, and it's a pollinator magnet. So I don't cut it back. But what I did want in the springtime is I wanted flowers around it because I had just a big kind of hole here. And so what I did do is I planted some liatris bulbs, and I'm really happy to see how well they are coming along. I'm really curious to see when they're going to start to bloom because I'm starting to get color. Oops. See if I can get this on some of these liatris. So it's going to be interesting to see. I did have them planted and spaced out very nicely, but I did have some issues with cats coming in and using the garden bed for their potty box, and I didn't realize some of the bulbs either got moved or I guess dug up. And so I do have a couple of holes, but I'm really tickled to see how this liatris is coming up all around the red porterweed. Hopefully I don't know, maybe in a week or two I'll start getting really nice blooms. And then I have over here Salvia nemorosa, which has just been blooming beautifully. This is called Rose Marvel. And I've gotten out here a couple of times and did some deadheading. If you deadhead this Salvia nemorosa, you will be rewarded with blooms upon blooms. And so what I do is I deadhead down at the base, and when the whole area is out of blooms, then I deadhead down here at the base. And so it just depends on where the blooms are. And like I said, I've deadheaded this a couple of times already, but it's just such a gorgeous color, and it does so well in the spring. And as I finish off back here, you can see that we have our cardinal climber, and these are where we planted the seeds. We've planted them in multiple areas because we have this 5-panel trellis dedicated for just this cardinal climber. And it becomes such a beautiful mat of green, and it is covered in blooms. When we have the fall hummingbird migration, oh, I got a mosquito there. When we have this fall hummingbird migration, we can have hundreds, I've counted 500 plus blooms on this trellis, and it's just beautiful. And then of course we get the massive hummingbirds coming in because they see the red. And then what I have in the container is I have a Russellia, or it's called the firecracker plant, and that blooms also red, and it is a very unusual leaf, but the blooms also are very attractive to hummingbirds. And then you might see that I've got volunteers along here, and I should get in here with the hoe because I'm not really sure. I think it's this. It looks like that leaf. So if it is, it prolifically reseeded itself, and I want to see that. I'm not going to keep them, but I want to see it. And then I have a little Joe Pye weed, and I've had this for 5 years, and it used to be in a container, and it just kind of languished. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put it in my garden bed here, and it's doing very well. It's a dwarf version. And even though this isn't technically a part of my central garden bed here, I do want to show you this because I recently planted this. Isn't that pretty? Oh my goodness. So these are what's called a double flower zinnia, and I really like this color. Isn't that bloom just fantastic? And the reason I have them here is I'm protecting this little start, and you can see he's doing really well. This is my native passion vine, one of the cuttings that I was able to successfully take, and he's going to be growing up this bamboo stalk. But in front of it, I just love this color of zinnia. It is called Dreamland Rose. And the interesting part, it is on a dwarf plant, but it is a fully double flower. And so I thought that is perfect for this container, at least in the start. Pollinators love zinnias, and this is to help protect it until it starts getting on its way. And behind here is all passion vine, and it's going to be climbing up and then onto the passion vine trellis. And so I thought, ooh, that is gorgeous protection. So thank you for joining me today as we took a look at this central garden bed. We're starting to get hot, and the plants are responding. I hope you all have a wonderful day today, and I hope to see you again soon.